So today we're going to take a look at a piece by Czerny. And Czerny was a composer who created many piano studies with the goal of helping us to have more dexterity in our fingers. And his piano studies have lots of techniques that are really helpful for learning repertoire from the late 1700s and early 1800s. So today we're going to look at a piece that's from Czerny's Selected Piano Studies. You can easily find this book online or find his pieces online or at any music store. And the particular piece we're looking at today is number 32. So his piece that we're looking at today is going to have a couple of techniques involved. There's right hand scales and left hand chords that are going to be utilized for this piece. So before we talk in more detail about how to do these techniques, I'm just going to show you the piece and play it first to get us acquainted with it. So here it is. And here we go. And voila! So when you play this piece, it should sound very fluid and free. But of course, there's a lot of work.
Move the paper.
Yes. Of course, there's a lot of work to get there. So I just want to talk about a few of the first steps that you can take when learning this piece. Okay, so first thing that we want to talk about today is the left hand, the chords. So there's 3 chords that you're going to need to know for the left hand. I'm just going to put the paper here really briefly so you can take a look before I demonstrate on the piano. So the first chord here is your C major triad, C, E, and G. Okay, that one is simple enough. All right, that's in your first bar. Second bar, we're going to have D, F, and G. Third bar, B, D, and G. And fourth bar, back to the original chord. Do you remember what that original chord was? C, E, and G. Okay, so we're going to take the rhythm kind of out of the picture for a moment because we just want to practice going back and forth between chords. Okay, let's try going back and forth between the first 2 chords. Ready? So our first chord, remember, was that triad, C, E, and G. And then the second one, D, F, and G, block chord. So we want to go back and forth between these 2 chords. Okay, you'll notice that the thumb here is present in both of the chords. And you'll notice too that the rest of your fingers, they don't actually have to move to a different place on the piano. The only thing that's changing is the fingers 3 and 5 are changing now to fingers 2 and 4. Okay, so now once you're comfortable with that, we're going to practice going from the second to the third chord. This was our second chord. For our third chord, you're going to reach your pinky down to here, change to your middle finger. Make sure to make that change on D. So again, going from bar 2 chord to the chord in bar 3. Okay, we're going to put all 3 of the chords together. Ready? So the first chord was your C major triad. Right? Your second chord, your G, is still going to be there in your thumb. You're changing to fingers 2 and 4, hand in the same position, just different fingers. And then your third chord, stretch out to B, change to the third finger here on D, and keep the G the same. Okay, so all 3 chords, first chord, second chord, and third chord. Now we can add the rhythm in and do it in real time. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, Okay, so that gives you your first half of your song, actually. This is an 8-bar piece. If you take a look at this piece, you'll notice that there's a new pattern in the second half, which starts right here. After we play those first 4 bars, there's a new pattern here in the next 4 bars in the second half of the piece. It sounds like this. There's actually a name for this type of chord, right? It's different from our block chords of before. The name for this type is Alberti bass. And there's a technique that you can use to make Alberti bass a lot easier to play. And that is to just kind of shake or rock your hand from side to side. Let's just try it with the D and the C, just to get an idea of how that feels. Some people say it's kind of like turning a doorknob, this sort of technique. Just the fact that you're using your wrist, rotating a bit. Okay, now the first chord here in the 5th bar. Try that again. There's your Alberti bass. So you're going to need some new chords for this second half of your piece. This chord, this chord, and then this chord. So again, we have our fingers, our thumb and second finger is going to be doing some motion, but we do have the pinky staying in the same place up until the last bar. To the G chord. So there is something that you should watch out for in this piece, and that is there is one place in the end, in the last line, where you have a chord that kind of flashes through very quickly. It's only there for one complete beat. So you have a small amount of time to make that chord change. And I'm going to show it to you right here on the page where I have it circled. It's right there. Do you see where that F sharp is? So you want to look out for sudden changes like this, because sudden changes are going to require extra practice. So watch out for this place right here. We have, in the 3rd beat, we go from this chord to this chord to a G chord. So practicing in block chord style, it will look like this. And then in Alberti bass. So just look out for this place right here in the very end. This is actually a cadence. This is a concluding chord progression for our Czerny piece. All right, so we're going to now put it together, all the things that we talked about for the left hand, with the right hand so you can hear how it works together. I didn't talk about the right hand today, just talked about the left hand. But I'd like to play it again so you can hear how everything comes together. And next time I can talk more about the right hand, about how to handle those scales. Ready? So here we go again. So that's a quick introduction to Czerny's 30-second piano study and some of the techniques that you'll learn and that you'll need for this left hand. So again, just to recap what we talked about today, we talked about how this is an 8-bar piece that can be split in half right after the 4th bar. We talked about how the first 4 bars are block chords. Memorizing and knowing these block chords just by heart, how to make the changes, this is totally essential, not only for this piece, but for many other pieces, which is what makes this study so helpful for your piano technique. So you want to practice changing those block chords. Then we talked about how in the next half of the piece, the last 4 bars, we have Alberti bass, and we want to shake or wiggle that wrist back and forth. that'll keep your muscles very free and loose. Again, an important technique, not just for this piece, but it'll unlock and open doors for many other pieces. And then finally, we talked about the cadence. The cadence is the concluding chords at the end of the piece that bring us back home. And in this case, it's ending in the key of G in the very end. So we talked about how when you're practicing this piece, you want to give extra time to the last part of the piece. In fact, I even actually wrote on this student's page, I wrote here, you can read what it says, start at the last bar. This is really important. When you're practicing, you don't want to practice the same way every time because the piece is not the same all throughout. It has some parts that are easier and some parts that are harder, right? So you're going to want to give more time to the harder parts, the parts that have more changes and need more of your attention. And that would be right here in this cadence. So that's, again, a quick introduction to how the left hand works in this piano study. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.